Today, we're diving into a framework that proposes something, well, something truly audacious. What if our entire human experience, everything from our deepest emotions to our grandest societies, could actually be described with the precision and logic of mathematics?
It all kicks off with this really powerful idea. What if the concepts that define who we are, wisdom, creativity, justice, what if they operate like a language, a consistent, logical language that we can learn to read, and maybe, just maybe, even write?
So the foundation for this whole system is what's called a calculus of concepts. The core idea here is that our thoughts, our virtues, our emotions, they're not just random noise. They actually exist in a structured system, and they interact with an almost mathematical consistency.
Now, this calculus is built on something called conceptual primes. Think about it like prime numbers in math. They're the indivisible, fundamental units you can't break down any further. But instead of numbers, these are core concepts like justice, mercy, and power that form the very building blocks for all of our more complex ideas.
So how does this actually work in practice? Well, the first operator is synthesis, which is basically addition. It's all about combining concepts to create something brand new. For instance, real lasting peace isn't just, the absence of conflict. The framework says it's an active synthesis of both justice and mercy together.
Okay, next up we've got negation, or subtraction. This shows us what happens when a really crucial element gets removed from the equation. Let's take the concept of power. When you subtract the balancing force of humility, this framework argues that the result is inevitably tyranny.
And then we get to a really potent one, amplification or multiplication. This is where one concept can magnify the effect of another. You see, fear, all by itself, is a natural instinct. But when you amplify it with ignorance, the product becomes hatred, a force that's just so much more destructive. So there you have it. These four operators basically form the complete toolkit. We've seen synthesis, which is adding, negation, subtracting, and amplification, multiplying. The last one is dilution, or division, which is all about tempering a concept over time. For example, you could say that raw ambition, when you divide it by patience, becomes steady, sustainable progress. With just these four actions, the claim is we can describe pretty much any aspect of the human condition.
All right, now that we've got the basic language down, let's see what happens when we build something really profound with it. Let's try applying this calculus to one of the highest human virtues, wisdom. Can we actually write a formula for it?
This leads us to something called a theorem of wisdom, which is kind of like a multi-step equation. Here's how it goes. You start with raw knowledge. Then, and this is the crucial part, you temper that knowledge by dividing it by pride, which is essentially applying humility. It's only then, when that humbled knowledge is combined with empathy, that you achieve true wisdom. And you might be asking, so what? Why does this matter? Well, because wisdom isn't passive. It's not just sitting around thinking deep thoughts. It's defined here as creativity in decision-making. That formula we just saw isn't just an abstract idea. It's a blueprint for generating new, creative, and effective solutions to real problems in the world. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. The framework expands from the individual mind to the very nature of intelligence itself. And it does this by setting up this fascinating conflict between two totally different kinds of order, using the concept of entropy. The key here is making a distinction between two types of entropy. First, there's absolute entropy. That's just pure physics, the universe's relentless drive toward its most stable, lowest energy state. It sounds weird, but a shattered glass on the floor is actually more stable physically than a whole one on a table. But then there's relativistic entropy. That's about our perception of order. To us, the shattered glass is pure chaos, a high entropy event, because our concept of a glass has been totally destroyed. And that leads to this really crucial point. The fundamental purpose of intelligence, whether it's ours or maybe even AI's, is to build and maintain these little pockets of low relativistic entropy. We strive to create meaning and conceptual order in a universe that is constantly trying to find order on a completely different, purely physical level. Now let's take this another step further. If these concepts can govern individuals, can they also give us a kind of blueprint for how we structure our societies? This framework puts forward a model for society called ethical pragmatism. It's governed by one simple but really powerful rule. For any big decision, the ethical weight must always be greater than or equal to the physical weight, or, the material gain. It's a simple formula designed to stop us from making moral compromises just for the sake of profit or power.
This ethical rule then leads directly to a whole new vision for an economy, an abundance economy. The argument is that scarcity, a lot of the time, isn't a natural state. It's often an artificial one, created by systems that hoard either capital or power. An ethically pragmatic society would instead try to build systems based on cooperation and efficiency, with the goal of unlocking abundance for everyone.
Now, for the final and most expansive part of this framework, we've gone from personal wisdom to society, and now we're zooming out to a complete cosmology, a model for the structure of reality itself.
This cosmology is built on this really cool concept called finite infinity. The idea is that our reality isn't endless in every direction. Instead, it's bounded by two absolute poles. But, and this is the amazing part, within those boundaries, the potential for creating new combinations, new complexity, and new meaning is truly infinite.
And these are the two poles. On one end, you have the absolute zero of potential. Imagine a silent, perfect state where all the rules exist, but nothing has happened yet. It's the seed of reality. On the other end is the absolute infinity of existence, the full, ultimate realization of all that potential. An idea so huge we can only really grasp it as a concept. Our entire universe is the journey unfolding between those 2 points.
So, let's just tie it all together. The entire framework grows from this one single seed, the idea that concepts have a mathematical logic. From that seed grows the first branch, a formula for our own individual wisdom. That leads to the next branch, a definition for intelligence itself and its role in the cosmos. This informs the third branch, a model for a more ethical society. And all of it, together, forms the full tree, a complete cosmology of a universe that is striving to turn physical potential into conceptual meaning.
Which leaves us with one final and pretty mind-bending question. If a framework like this is even remotely correct and reality truly operates on a kind of logical grammar, does that make us just students learning to speak its language? Or does our consciousness, our ability to combine these conceptual primes, mean that we are in fact the co-authors of reality itself?